Ladies and gentlemen, before we depart, I want to leave you with one last story. This is a story on when I visited Botswana last summer. When I arrived at Nata Airport, I was picked up by the local taxi company. Now, this was not the sort of taxi you may imagine. This was, in fact, a cycle rickshaw. You know, the type with the bicycle and the carriage attached behind. I told the gentleman the location in which I was heading, and we began the journey. I wasn't not aware of the geographical surroundings, but 90 drooling and tedious minutes later, we arrived in the village of Matobo. The village people soon surrounded us and greeted us with a welcoming dance and song. Afterwards, I was introduced to the Diallo family, whom I would be spending the next 5 nights with. They led me into their house, which could only be described as a mud hut, and pointed to a piece of dirty towel on the floor and said in very broken English, "You sleep here." I thanked the Diallo family and went and met the rest of the tribe. That night for tea, they cooked what they called jollof rice, which to you and I was just rice and vegetables. We all sat down on the floor with the mother, the father, and their 2 children, a 10-month-old baby boy and their 10-year-old daughter called Aina. Now, Aina had been fortunate enough to attend school since the age of 5 and had developed a pretty high standard of education. So we were able to have a decent conversation over tea. After tea, I realised there was no Facebook, no TV, no electronics to simply put your feet up and waste the night away. So the family introduced me to a game which seemed rather popular amongst the tribe. It involved taking several circular pieces of rope and throwing them over several poles in the ground. After this bit of fun, I departed back to my sleeping bag and closed my eyes for the night. The next morning, I woke up and I promised I would go and fetch the water with Aina. Now, this journey was more than 5 miles to fetch 1 pail of water. In that time, I really got to know the story behind Aina. She told me how lucky yet guilty she felt being offered the chance to enhance her education. Then, she told me something I never thought I would hear. Aina told me that she had malaria. She said she could feel her health deteriorating day by day. I asked Aina, if you could see one thing in the world, what would it be? Aina leant over and whispered in my ear, "I want to see it snow." The 5 days soon passed and I couldn't quite believe it was time to say goodbye to the Diallo family. But before I left, Aina sang her farewell song.
Some words they can't be spoken, only sang. So
6 months later, after I arrived home, I received a letter through the post. This very letter, in fact. It was from Aina's mum. It read, "Dear George, thank you so much for coming over to Matobo and meeting our family. We very much enjoyed your company and your help throughout the week. However, I sadly have to tell you that Aina lost her fight for survival from malaria. She'd passed away just 2 weeks after you left. Aina always dreamed for one thing in her life, and that one thing was to see it snow." Nothing is impossible. All you have to do is believe and want it to come true. Then nothing is impossible. Ladies and gentlemen, this is For I You. Ladies and gentlemen, nothing is impossible. All you have to do is believe and want it to come true. Then nothing is impossible.